Hello guys, very good morning. My name is Ravi Kumar. So I'll be taking today's demo. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, all right. So good morning to all, and sorry for delay for 10 minutes. Okay. So let me start with my introduction. My name is Ravi Kumar, and I'm based out of Bangalore, and I have 11 years of experience in IT industry, where I do implementing and administration of Microsoft and VMware product. In cloud services, I take care of Azure Active Directory, Azure administration and migration to Azure, Office 365 implementation and migrating services to Office 365. And also in on-prem virtualization, I take care of VMware and Hyper-V. And also I take care of Windows Server administration. And also on messaging, I take care of Exchange. So this is a quick introduction. And thanks for your time for joining this demo. Appreciate that. Okay. So let's get started. So we are having the demo about Azure administration, which is AZ-104. Okay. So let me go through what all the topics we'll be covering in this training. Okay. So first we'll be trying to understand what is cloud computing and benefits of cloud computing. What is Azure and what are the ways we manage the Azure? We'll be seeing in the module 1. And in module 2, we'll be trying to understand what is Azure subscription, what are the types of subscription, how to create the subscription, how to manage the subscription we'll be seeing in the module 2. And also we'll try to understand what is Azure Resource Manager and how the deployment model will be there and how do you manage the resources we'll be understanding in the module 2. And in module 3, as a part of computing, we'll be understanding what is virtual machine in Azure, how to create the virtual machine in Azure, and also we'll be seeing as a part of automation, what is Azure Resource Manager template, and we will see how the overview of ARM templates in module 3. Okay. And as a part of pricing perspective, we'll be understanding about the Azure calculator. So how do you use the Azure calculator to get the estimated cost, right? So we'll be seeing how to use the Azure calculator. And also we'll be seeing about the Azure storage service, right? So how, like, if you want to store some data in the cloud, right? So what are the ways you can keep the data in the cloud and how do you access? We'll be understanding in the Azure storage service. Okay. And also we'll be understanding about the Azure network, right? So how do you create the network in the cloud? Okay. And how do you create multiple networks in the cloud? And when you have multiple networks in the cloud, how do you connect using the VNet peering? And also how do you extend your on-prem connectivity to your Azure, right? So we'll be seeing using the VPN, right? So what is site to site, what is point to site, and what is Azure load balancer, right? So like how do you host your application in a scalability? We'll be seeing the Azure load balancer. So these are the core topics what we'll be covering, which is compute, network, and storage. And also we'll be trying to understand like how do you control your traffic flow in Azure using the Azure Network Security Group, right? So these are the core topics wherein we'll trying to understand. And then we will be seeing like what will be the day-to-day activity with respect to managing your virtual machine workload, like the disk management, the network management, and the snapshot and the imaging part, right? So these are the things what we'll be covering. And also we'll be seeing about the high availability services, right? So how do you host your application in a high availability mode using the scale set and availability zone? We'll be understanding that. And also whenever you're scaling your application in a horizontal way, like how do you deal with the automation using the Azure scale set? We'll be seeing that. So, and also we'll be covering two past topic, right? So how do you create your database as a PaaS? How do you create your web application as a PaaS? So we'll be seeing that. And also we'll be seeing about the Azure Active Directory, right? So as a part of identity and access management, like how do you create your users, groups, and how do you manage them? So what is Azure AD premium features? What is two-step verification? So how do you integrate your on-prem AD with Azure AD, right? So we'll be covering in the module 2. And in module 13, wherein we'll be covering the recovery services, like what is Azure Recovery Service, like how do you protect your on-prem data, how do you protect your on-prem workflow running on VMware, Hyper-V, as well as running in the cloud, right? So we'll be seeing the recovery services in the module 13. And also we'll be covering the monitoring and troubleshooting, like how do you monitor and troubleshoot the VM, network, storage, connectivity, and accessibility. We'll be covering in the module 30, 14 and 15. So these are the 15 modules wherein we'll be covering in this entire training. The training is about 30 hours, right? So 30 plus hours. And also it will be 90% practical oriented. So we understand the theory concept. I'll show you how to deploy the services in the cloud and how do you deal with them, right? So this is how the training runs. Any questions on the content part or on the training part, let me know. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, please unmute yourself. You can ask or you can type it in the chat box. And if I'm going fast, please tell me. I'll stop down, like I'll slow down. And if at all, if you require any relevant examples, you can ask me so I can clarify the doubts. Yeah, any questions so far about the content what we discussed?
Yeah, hi Ravi, I'm Madhuri. So for learning Azure DevOps, sorry, Azure admin course, do we need to have any prior coding language or scripting language?
Okay, the prerequisite part, right? Okay, so
Yeah,
I'll take up this question in the next slide. So where we'll be understanding what is a prerequisite. So I'll cover that.
sure.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Also, is there any difference between Azure admin and Azure data engineer? I see there is some course content differences, so I'm not sure exactly what exactly the roles and responsibilities both will be doing. Could you just explain that also?
Okay, all right. So the next two slides, I'll be covering the learning path. So there you'll get some idea about what is Azure Admin and what are the learning path. So there you'll get information about that. Okay, I'll cover that.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. So how about others? Any questions, any doubts on this? Let me know. And if at all, if you want to add up something, right? So like some content related to the Azure Admin, you can let me know so we can customize that. Okay. All right. So now there was a question about what is a prerequisite and do I need to have a coding skills, and also what is a learning path. All right. So some information about that. Let me cover that. So first we'll cover about the learning path in Azure. Okay. So now when you see the learning path, so this slide is a bit old. I need to update it. So that's fine. So earlier the paper content was 103. The code for Azure Admin for okay. So you see some background noise. Okay, if you don't have any questions, please mute yourself. Whenever you have any questions, you can unmute and you can ask me. Yeah, thank you. All right, because the sessions will be recorded, so the background noise will be there in your recording, so that's why. Okay. All right, so now what are the learning path in Microsoft Azure? So Microsoft Azure, right? Microsoft Cloud, there are different learning path like Azure. In Azure, there are different things, right? And so what are that? Let's see. And what will be the learning path, whether you want to start with Azure Admin or DevOps, whatever. So if you want to start your career in Microsoft Cloud, right? So when you need to know the AZ-900, so which talks about the Azure fundamentals. This deals purely about the fundamentals. So anyways, this we will be covering in our module 1, right? So what is cloud computing, benefits, types of cloud computing, types of cloud services, what is the difference, and what is Azure, and also the services we'll be learning that. So whatever is there in the AZ-900 will be covered in our content as well. So, and also this AZ-900 is a optional certification. It's not a mandatory that you need to get certified with AZ-900 only, then you can go further. It's not like that. So with our AZ-104, this AZ-900 is also covered. So you need not to worry on that. Okay. And the course what we are learning is AZ-104. Earlier it was called as a 103, okay, which was updated with some content. Now it is called AZ-104, which talks about the administration part. So here, or there are two parts now, wherein one is building and managing your IT infrastructure like compute, network, storage, and other things. And second thing is developing the solution. A developer who develops is the application. So wherein those application, wherein we will be supporting by providing the infrastructure for them to host the application, right? So there are two main parts here. One is the developing solution in cloud, and another one is the administration. So AZ-204, this is the course content which talks about the developing solution here, right? So if at all, if you are from development background or you want to start your career as a development in Azure, so AZ-204 is the right content for you. And AZ-104 is completely your infrastructure management. So whatever we discuss, so which is part of the AZ-104 we are covering. Okay, with that, you'll be understanding what is Azure administration, like how to build the compute, network, storage, and other services, how to manage them, right? And here, we are not developing anything, right? And also the coding knowledge is required here as well. So where you will not be developing any application here. So you require a coding language in the sense to manage your day-to-day activity in a faster and better way. That's the only thing. Like you are going to create the templates to make your work easier to deploy the services, or you know the PowerShell or any other command language like shell scripting, so where you can manage your infrastructure. That's it. So no development here. Yes, you need to uh, know any programming language, so that will help you, but still you can manage your Azure completely with UI as well. So if you want to do a bulk operation, right, so in that case the coding will help you to make your work easier and better and faster. Okay, so that is one thing. And if at all, if you're looking to make your career as a Azure DevOps, right? So for Azure DevOps, there is a prerequisites. So you should be knowing AZ-104 content, or you should be knowing AZ-204 content. Then you can learn AZ-400 course content, right? So with this, you can have the sufficient knowledge about the Azure DevOps engineer expert. And obviously is the certification AZ-104 plus 400 or 204 plus 400. So this covers the Azure DevOps. Okay. So once you're done with your AZ-104, if at all, if you are interested to learn on an architect level, after DevOps also you can do architect. So there is no prerequisite, like there is no such that you should not do architect after 204, you can do it. One of the prerequisite for architect is AZ-104 plus AZ-305. So this covers the architect part, right? So if you're interested to learn about the Azure architect, so AZ-104 content plus AZ-305, which will make you to understand Azure solutions architect expert. Okay. And when you ask about the data science, is completely a different track, right? So here Azure administration, we have seen the content. So we'll be understanding like how to build your infrastructure like compute, network, storage, and managing those properties related to the administration of your services. You'll be learning in AZ-104. And Azure data science, which talks completely about your data and your data analysis part. So that's a completely a different track, and which talks about the different course content. So if you're looking something on data engineering, then you can go with Azure data science kind of course, right? And if you're looking on administration, AZ-104. And if you're looking for developing solution, AZ-204. And if you're looking for a core level network in Azure, so you can learn 104 plus AZ-700, or even directly you can learn AZ-700 as well, right? So AZ-700 is a new course which has been introduced last year, and 305 is also introduced from this April. Okay, AZ-700, which talks about the core networking in Azure, right? So this is about the AZ-700. And if at all, if you're looking in security part in cloud, AZ-500 is the one, right? So AZ-500 for your Azure security part. Okay, so after 104 also you can cover AZ-500, or directly you can learn AZ-500 also. There is no prerequisite for AZ-500, right? You can do it. And also there are many other content for your identity and access management, which is SC-900, AZ-300, so on, right? So there are different tracks which focuses on the respective domains. Okay, so this is about your learning path. Any questions on this?
Yeah, I got it, Ravi. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So anyone has any questions on the learning path, let me know. Otherwise, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. So what is the prerequisite? Or let's take example, I just passed out with my graduation. Now I'm planning to start my career as a cloud administrator. Now I'm choosing the path which is Microsoft Azure. So is there any prerequisite, right? Or I already have a experience in IT industry, like I'm managing the network, compute, storage, virtualization, right? So now I want to learn and start my career as a Azure admin. Okay. Or let's take example, I'm in a technical from a different background, like I manage the SAP or some other application. Now I want to switch my career as a Azure admin, right? Or let's take example, I'm from a non-technical background. So is it a good or right path to start Azure admin? Yes, AZ-104 is the content which is the starting level, in the sense it's a baseline where you will be understanding from the scratch, right? So you'll be understanding from the scratch what is cloud, how to build your compute network storage in the cloud, and how do you host your application. Everything you will be understanding from the AZ-104. So this suits for everyone, like on whichever you are, like fresher or experienced in IT industry. Yes. Okay. And what are the prerequisites, right? So if I'm a passed out, I just passed out my graduation, so what should I need to know? Or I have experience in managing Windows administration, now I want to start as Azure admin. Or I'm from a network, I want to start my Azure admin. Or I'm from a non-technical background, so if I want to start this, what are the prerequisites I need to know, right? So in cloud, what will happen? Everything what we create and manage, we call it as a software-defined data center, right? So everything you create and manage through your the web portal. So here you will not be touching their physical data center, physical hardware and all. So wherein everything you manage through a virtualization concept, right? So wherein you should be having some knowledge about the managing the operating system, like Windows and Linux. So we will be creating a servers in the cloud. So you should know some basic understanding and management skill, like how do you connect, how do you work with the Windows and Linux. But still, we don't manage anything inside the OS. If at all, if your job role defines that, then you have to do. Otherwise, so basically, we will be working to create the infrastructure and support it. Suppose if you create a Windows machine and if the user is not able to connect to it, so you should be knowing some basic administration skill. So if you know the expertise level, that is also fine. If at all, if you don't know anything, you should learn some basics about Linux and Windows, where you can administer and you can manage. But still, if you are interested, you can learn in depth as well. So I'm not blocking that. So some basic knowledge of OS administration is required. And also you should be knowing about the virtualization concept. So here you don't manage any hypervisor here. So that is taken care. So now you should be knowing what is virtual machine and what is virtualization concept. You should be knowing about that, right? So virtualization concept you should be knowing, and also the cloud. Anyways, we'll be learning in this training. You need not to worry. And basics about the storage, how it will be used, right? So because whatever we create in the cloud and whatever you deploy in your on-prem, there is no difference. Only thing is the SLA, the agreement between the vendor and the customer, what vendor is going to take care and what customer is going to take care. So based on that, you will be managing it. Okay. So you should be knowing about some storage concept overview, and also you should be knowing about the basic networking, right? So the networking is also very important, like what is IP address, types of IP, classes of IP, and what is subnetting, right? So what are network devices like firewall, routers, switches, why we use, how that will help in your real-time infrastructure, right? You should be knowing that basic concepts. Okay. And also you should be knowing some other concepts like DNS, VPN, firewall, encryption, and disaster recovery, backup, restore. So what are this about? and why that is required in your infrastructure, right? So this concept you should be knowing, because we will be dealing with our infrastructure with a day-to-day basis. Okay, so these are the prerequisites. So if you know this knowledge, well and good. If you don't know this, you should start learning that. So if you need any help, let me know. I can provide some links where you can refer it. Okay, yeah. So this is about the prerequisite. So as I told you, the coding is not mandatory yet, but as and when you start growing your career, so wherein the coding knowledge is required, where you can make your work easier, better, and faster. Okay, and with the Azure admin, where you'll not be doing any development here. Yeah, any questions, any doubts about the prerequisites, let me know. Okay, so what will be the cloud admin role, right? So now I'm done with this training. So now I'm starting my career as a cloud administrator. What will be my day-to-day activity, right? So basically, you will be managing the services in the cloud in Microsoft Azure, right? So wherein you'll be managing the storage, network, and compute, and also you'll be managing the entire IT life cycle model in the cloud, like creating the services in the cloud, upgrading or updating as and when you require, and whenever you don't require the service, decommissioning the service. So entire IT lifecycle model wherein you'll be managing in the cloud. And also you'll be monitoring the services running in the cloud. So whatever the services you have been spinned up, whether it is underutilized or overutilized, you'll be fine tuning it as and when required. And also you'll be taking the end user request, like how do you manage in your on-prem? Same way, if someone want to develop or host any services or application, they might ask you to create the compute, network, storage, or any services. So you take up the end user request and you create the services in the cloud, and you will hand over back to the end user. And also you'll be monitoring the workload running in the cloud. And if at all, if any infrastructure level, any issues, connectivity issues and all, you will take care. And if something issues on the vendor end, which is part of vendor, so wherein you'll be coordinating with vendor and you'll be addressing to get back the services. And also sometime you'll be interacting with the third party, like if any applications is integrated, like if you're using Azure AD, and also if you have any third party authentication integration, right? So you'll be interacting with the third party as well, right? So you'll be interacting with them, and you will make sure that your application and services are running fine. Okay, and what are the ways you manage the cloud? So you can manage your cloud using the Azure portal, right? So using the graphical user interface, you can manage your entire IT infrastructure, as well as command line tool you can use, and you can manage your infrastructure, right? So these are the two ways where you'll be able to manage your Azure infrastructure as a successful cloud administrator, wherein you'll be managing the OS, virtualization, cloud infrastructure, storage, and networking in the cloud. Okay, so this is about your cloud administrator role. Any questions on this? Okay, so I'll just cover one basic slide today, and I'll show you some lab so that you can have some idea how it will work, right? So I'll just give you the introduction to cloud and Microsoft Azure, then we will see creating one services in the cloud. So now, what is cloud computing here, right? So first thing, we'll try to understand what is computing. So now if you want to host any application, right? So what you require? You require a compute, in the sense you require a CPU, RAM, network, storage, right? Then you can develop your application and you can host your application. That's how you will be running it. So now you will be taking care of this entire hardware thing, right? So entire hardware will be placed on your data center, and you'll be managing it. So when it comes to cloud computing, and the same thing is required, right? You require a CPU, RAM, network, storage to host your application. But what will happen here? This hardware resources will not be physically present in your data center, where this you will be consuming it in the vendor environment. Like if you take example of your Google Mail or something now. So what will happen there? You want to send and receive an email. For that, you create a mailbox in Google, so wherein that requires the operating system, that requires the hard disk, that requires the CPU, RAM, network, everything, right? So all this physical resources wherein it will be present in the on the Google data center, where you are accessing your mailbox through your application from your mobile or from your laptop, right? And you're sending and receiving your email. Okay. So in that scenario, what you will do, you will have this hardware resources in the vendor environment where you will be connecting and managing over the networks, right? So that we call as a cloud computing. A cloud computing can be defined as delivering the computing power, CPU, RAM, network, storage, and operating system. So all this thing will be consuming as a service over the network, right? So we are consuming this service as a network. So here, if you create a server in Azure, so the physical resources are present in Microsoft, and you'll be accessing and managing over the network. So rather than physically having this compute resource at your customer location. So this we can say it as a simple cloud computing. Any questions, any doubt on this? Okay, so guys, wherein we don't have your contact details, right? So you have joined to this meeting with the meeting ID. So please share your phone numbers and your email ID. So on the chat box, you can chat privately with Visualpath admin, and you can share your details so that the materials will be shared to your email ID. And for upcoming meeting details will be shared to your phone number. Please share your phone number and your email ID. So we don't have Ashok and someone joined as a guest, Geeta Sri, Hemant Reddy, Venkat Madhav, and Kumar, right? So we don't have your email ID and phone number. Please share your contact details to the chat box. Okay. Okay. All right. Sure. Thank you. All right. So any questions on the cloud computing, let me know. If not, I'll go to the next topic, which is the benefits of cloud computing. Okay, all right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for sharing your details. Okay, so now what is the benefit? Why people are learning cloud and adapting the cloud services? So again, why we are learning cloud and we are looking our career in cloud? So basically, cost saving is the major what do you say advantage in cloud. So that's why people are adapting the cloud services to their infrastructure. So cost saving is the major reason of cloud services adoption, and also you get a very good performance in the cloud, and also the maintenance like unplanned and planned outages which cause your business downtime, right? So that is taken care here. So where you get assured SLA of 99.95, but still you can design your application to achieve 99.99%. And also the software updates, the firmware update, the hypervisor update, OS update, application updates are taken care as in whatever the type of service you choose. And you get whatever the OS you want to run, like Windows, Linux, yes, you can do it. And also you can use the cloud as your backup and recovery solution as well. Keep your data in your, like run your application in on-prem. Critical data you can store it in the cloud, which will be easy for you to restore. And also the data safety, any data which you're moving between your on-prem to cloud will be encrypted, and data which is storing it on the hardware will be encrypted, right? So these are the benefits. So these are the core benefits where organizations are looking and moving and adapting the cloud services. Okay, so that's why nowadays we can see the cloud services adoption is high, and also we can see many of them are consuming the cloud services, right? And so that's why when we are learning and we are moving. And also the future will be the cloud, and not only the completely cloud, right? So it will be kind of hybrid, like partially you'll be keeping in your on-prem, some services in the cloud work as a hybrid. And also we can see where you might have multi-cloud as well. Your on-prem, Azure, AWS, Google, your IT infrastructure is running, and all are connected and working as a single IT infrastructure for you, right? So that scenarios also you can see. Okay, so these are the benefits of cloud computing. So that's why where people are adapting the cloud services. Any questions on this? Okay, so please share your contact details if you have not shared, so that the next training meeting details will be shared to your phone numbers. and the recording sessions will be given access to your email IDs. Okay, please share your details with the chat box with Visualpath admin. Okay, all right. So now how the training runs. So we will be explaining about the service, right? So let's take example. I'll be explaining about the virtual machine. What is virtual machine? Then we will be showing you like how to create the virtual machine, right? So here I'll go to the Azure portal. So whatever I am showing you here, so the same thing you do in your real time as well. And also I'll be helping to create your accounts in Microsoft Azure where you can practice your lab. So that's why I told you it will be 90% practical oriented. Okay, so this is how wherein you will log into your Azure portal. Okay, so Ashok, Hemant Reddy and Kumar, we don't have your contact details. So please share your email ID and phone number. Okay. Okay, I hope others have shared your details. If not, please share it. Okay, so this is the Azure portal, the same thing what you do in your real time as well. Okay, so now let's take example. I want to deploy. So before that, I want to clean up a few things. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so now let's take example. I want to host an application. So for that, I require a Windows Server 2016 running, right? And I want this to be available in some east part of US or west part of US, right? So wherein we'll be discussing what is virtual machine and the properties. Then I'll be explaining like how to create the virtual machine here, right? So let me create on resource group. 1 second, guys. My system got freezed. I'll just rejoin. Okay, stay online.